Okay, let's do some.
We may not soak asafida in warm water, but one may put it into vinegar. We may not soak vetches nor rub them, but one may put them into a sieve or a basket. We may not sift straw with a sieve nor put it on a high place so that the shaft will drop, but we may take it up in a sieve and pour it into the feeding trough. We may sweep out the feeding trough from before a stall ox, and we may move it to the side because the excrement. These are the words of Redosa, but if this age is prohibited. We may feed from before one animal and place it before another animal on Shabbos. Straw is on that is on the bed. One may not move it with his hand, but he may move it with his body. And if it was a fodder for animals, or if it was a pillow or a sheet or it's over it, he may move it with his hand. A householder's clothes press we may undo, but may not press down. And a launderer's press, however, we may not touch. But Judah says if it was undone from before Shabbos, we may undo it completely and remove it.
Okay, next parak. Notel Adam et benova ha'even biyado. So here's a din in muktzah again. Child has got is holding a stone. Okay, so
Right.
stone is muktzah, the child isn't. But you're allowed to pick up the child, even though the child is holding the muktzah. And V'kalkala v'even b'socha. Also a basket with a stone in it. Now this we have to dive a little bit further into it. That this is talking about where you've got where your basket is full of fresh fruits that will be damaged by
Right.
falling on the ground. Because if they're things that let's say potatoes. Um, well, I suppose potatoes you might be muktzah in but let's say onions. Let's say you've got onions in your basket.
Mm.
You've got a stone in there. So what you should do is really tip it out and let the stone fall out by itself. And you're not so worried if onions hit the floor, that's where they came from. You're not so worried. But if let's say you've got like grapes or berries or stuff like that that's going to get squished if you drop them on the ground. So then you're allowed to pick up the basket with the stone in it because tipping it out is going to ruin your fruits.
But the
Okay,
Gemara here says that the stone is being used to block a hole.
right. So the stone could be used to block a hole, correct? And well, if the stone is used to block a hole, then it's part of the basket.
Right. It says there would be a base. It says it's a stone. In this way, the base is a basket. The basket is a base to hold both the prohibited object and a permissible one. If it contains only the stone, however, the basket would be base for a prohibited object.
Yeah,
You mix them
yeah,
both. The basket
if
would
it
be okay.
contains just the stone, then it would be a basis lesser.
Right.
If it had been put there, deliberately before Shabbos.
Right.
But if it's accidental and you didn't intend to leave it there over Shabbos and you just came and found this stone inside the basket on Shabbos and you wanted to use the basket, you could tip it out.
Mhm.
Um, all right. Metaltalim
Okay.
truma tameya ima tahora ve'ima chulin. So let's say you've got a container that's got truma tahora and truma tameya in it, and you want to give the truma tahora to a kohen, or you are a kohen and you want to eat it. So you're allowed if it's all in one container. I assume there must be a separation between them or the different species or whatever. And you know that the one is tame and the other is tahor. You can pick up the one with the other, even though the truma tamea is muktzah, because you can't do anything with it unless you're talking about feeding it to your animals. But in general, your assumption is that truma tamea is muktzah. And also with chulin, um, chulin. So the truma tamea could be picked up agav the chulin because the chulin is mutar. Um, so we're talking about where the tahor is below and the tameh is above, because then there's no way to get at the tahor without picking up the tameh.
Right.
But if the tahor is above and the tameh is below, then just take the tahor from on top and leave the
That's
tameh behind. Okay. Um, all right. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af Ma'alin is hamaduma be'echadumeya. He has a nice big chiddush over here. Is that, let's say you had truma that fell into chulin that was more than 100 against it.
okay.
So now in such a case, it can be it's batel, but you're supposed to
Right.
take out that hundredth and however much is the truma and give it to the coin so that the coin shouldn't lose out. Okay, and what he's saying is that you can even take out you can even take out the truma portion from this mixture and eat the rest. He says, why? What's his svara over here? Is that you're not it's not a tikkun. If you were saying that it's a tikkun, then you wouldn't be allowed to do it. But
Mhm.
he says technically you could if you have a meduma mixture where it's batal, where you've got 100 in the chulin against the truma, then
Mhm.
you could just start eating from one side of the pile and say, okay, I'll leave out a piece of truma that I'll give to the Kohen later. So it's not that you're not allowed to eat it before. It's just that what you're supposed to do is take out the truma and you can eat the chulin, but it's not that it needs that to be taken out. It's just that you want to make sure that you leave some for the Kohen. But um, really what's actually happened is that the truma is batel. It's gone. It's hidden. It's clearly not there. And the only reason we say give it to the coin is so the coin shouldn't lose out. But unless you're Rabbi Eliezer who says that when you're taking out the truma, we say that this is the truma that fell in. We're just saying we're compensating the coin. So if we fail to compensate in nunu, we lost out.
Right.
So this is why Rabbi Yehuda says that even on Shabbos you'd be allowed to take out the truma portion from this mixture and give it to the and set it aside for the
Oh,
kohen and eat the chulin because it's not really a tikkun.
okay. All right, I got that.
Okay, Mr. Base. Even shall pi hachavis. All right. We got a barrel and there's a stone on top of the barrel. Stone is muktzah, barrel is not. Okay, so what's your eitzah? Matzel tzida v'hinofeles. Tilt it to the side and let the stone fall off. Okay, now let's complicate the situation a little more. Haisa bein hachavios. Now there are a few barrels over here, and the stone's on top of one of them, and you're worried that if you tip it, then the stone's going to fall and cause damage on another one. Because they're all
Yeah.
they're all next to each other, and some of them are fragile, and you just don't want to cause damage with the stone. Okay, what do you do? Magbiha. So pick up the barrel. Umata al tzida v'hinofela. So pick it up, take it away from the others, and then drop it off. Okay, so it's still called tiltul min hatzad, even though you're picking up the barrel with the stone on top of it. This again is where the stone was accidentally there. If the stone was deliberately placed there before Shabbos, then the barrel itself becomes a basis isur, and it
Right.
becomes muktzah as well. Maus she'al hakar. What happens if you've got money on the cushion? Okay. Again, no eres hakar v'hen noflos. Okay, so shake the cushion and let the money fall off. Haisa alav lishleshes mekancha besmartot. What if there's lishleshes is some kind of dirt, uh,
Filth. They still filth
filth,
here.
some kind of
Still
filth,
filth.
right? Mekancha
Right.
besmartot. So you're allowed to wipe it off with a cloth on Shabbos. But you're not allowed to put water on it, right? Because
Mhm.
putting water on the beged in order to clean it is like a kvisa. You're washing it, so you
Washing,
you,
squeezing.
you can wipe it with something dry,
Right.
and that's okay. But wiping it with something wet, it's like washing. Haisa shel or, but what happens if the cushion is made of leather? Nosner aleha mayim ad shetichle. You're allowed to wash leather because leather is not considered kvisa. It's not absorbent. Leather doesn't absorb the water. So and that's not how you don't clean. It's nowhere is it similar to washing. So let's say your shoes get soiled, you're allowed to put water on your shoes, on leather shoes, that is, and rub them clean because that's not derech kvisa. Yeah.
Mhm.
Beis Shammai omrim magbihin min hashulchan atzamos v'klipin. So here's a machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. If you have on your table a bunch of bones and shells after your meal. So what do you do with them? Because now these are no longer edible, they're muktzah. He says just pick them up and throw them away. Beis Hillel omrim notel is a tavla kula menara. No, you got to shake off the whole tablecloth. So basically tiltul min hatzad. Now,
Right.
here's an interesting question. If this sounds like Beis Hillel being Machmir and Beis Shammai being Mekel, yet this halacha is not brought in that Perek in Eidos, right? Remember we had the whole Perek of the Chumras of Beis Hillel and the Kulas of Beis Shammai, and this is not one of them. And actually, the Gemara brings that that it's actually hipuch hadayas. It's mixed up. Actually, the opinions are the other way around. Um, so it seems like that's the reason why this isn't brought in that peric, is because it's that is not la halacha. Okay. Ma'avirin milifnei hashulchan perorin pachos mikazayis. So if you have crumbs that are less than a kazayas in size, you can just wipe them off. Um, okay, pachos mikazayis. Even v'se'ar shel afunin, v'se'ar shel adashim, and the hairs of the peas and lentils, and the shells. In other words,
Right.
um, right? Because all of these things you can take off. Because all of these things can be fed to animals.
Right.
So you might have had a thought, okay, these things are small and insignificant, and therefore they also might be considered muktzah, but because you can feed them to animals, they don't become muktzah. Sfog, a sponge. Im yesh lo or base achiza, if it's got a leather handle, mekanchin bo, so you can use it to wipe things up. Vim lav ein mekanchin bo, but if it doesn't have a handle, then there's a concern that you're gripping the sponge directly, and while you're mopping things up, you're going to squeeze it out as well.
Right. Mm.
Okay. Chachamim omrim ben kach uben kach nitzal b'Shabbos eino mekabel tumah. So Chachamim say that whether it's got the handle or not, you are allowed to pick it up on Shabbos when it's dry. Okay, because it is a kli. It's not just like stick or stone, but the kli is not mekabel tumah, because it's not one of the substances that's makabel tumah, which is cloth, leather, sack, kli wood or metal or cheres or glass. It's sponge is not. It's just not something that's got the. It's not shaykh to tumah, just like stoneware is not shaykh.
Right. Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
and it.
Okay. Right. Test Zion.
Yeah.
We, we may invert a bowl over a lamp in order that it not set fire to a beam, or over feces because of a child, or of a scorpion, or that it not sting. But Yehuda says the incident came before Rabbi Zokan ben Zakkai in Arab, and he said, I fear for him that he is liable for a sin offering. If a Gentile lit the lamp, the Jew may use its light, but if he did so for the Jew, he may not use it. If a Gentile drew water to water his own animal, a Jew may water his animal after him. But if he did so for a Jew, he may not use it. If a Gentile made a gangway upon which to disembark, the Jew may disembark after him, but if he did so for the Jew, he may not use it. It once happened to Rebbe Gamil and the elders were arriving on a ship. A Gentile made a gangway for which to disembark, and Rebbe Gamil said, and the elders embarked on it. Okay. All utensils may be taken on Shabbos and the doors with them, even though they were detached on the Sabbath, for they are not like the house doors which are not prepared. And a person may take a hammer with
Oh, that's it.
which to crack.
We're done.
That's it. I finished.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Aleph Zayin.
Okay. Okay. Zion. Beis Shammai says we may not sell to a Gentile, nor help him load, nor lift the load upon him unless there's sufficient time for him to reach a nearby place. But Beis Hillel permits this. Beis Shammai says we may not give hides to a Gentile tanner, or clothing to a Gentile launderer unless there is sufficient time that they may be completed while it is yet day. In all these cases, Beis Hillel permits the act when the sun is up. Rabbi Shimon Gamil says, my father's household used to give 3 white clothes to a Gentile launderer 3 days before Shabbos, and both concur that we may place the beans of the olive press and the rollers of the wine press. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And we're on to okay. Truma.
Hate this.
Okay. If a saw of truma fell to 100 and one ground them, if they became less, just as the kulim became less, so the truma became less, and it's permitted. If a saw or truma fell into less than 100, one ground them and they increased, just as the chulin increased, so the truma increased, and it is forbidden. If it is known that the chulin wheat is superior to that of truma, it is permitted. And if a saw of truma fell into less than 100 and chulin fell in afterwards, if accidentally, it is permitted. If intentionally, it's forbidden. If one eats truma inadvertently, he must pay its value plus 1/5, whether he eats or drinks it, and anoints himself with it, or anoints himself with it. Whether it's a clean truma or an unclean truma, he must pay 1/5 and a fifth of the fifth. He may not pay in truma, but in tithes kulin, which has become truma. And that which is given in payment is truma, and the priest decides to forego it, he cannot do so. If the daughter of an Israelite ate truma and afterwards married a priest, that the truma she ate had not been acquired by a priest, she pays its value and the fifth to herself. But if she ate truma which the priest had already acquired, she pays its value to the owners and the fifth to herself. For they said, if one eats truma inadvertently, he pays its value to the owners and the fifth to the whomever he wishes.
Hey.
Moros. Okay, Yud Aleph. One who locks the olive press because of the presses, but were there in the olive press vessels. I'm sorry. One who locks the olive press because of the pressers, but there were in the olive press vessels that were tamei midras. Remeah says the olive press is tamei. Rabbi Yehuda says the olive press is tahor. And Shimon says that the vessels are tahor for them, the olive press is tamei, and if the vessels are tamei for them, the olive press is tahor. Rabbi Yossi says, why? But why are the contents of the press tamei? Only because Amaharites are not acquainted with the tumor of movement. Presses were coming in and going out of the olive press, and there were tamei beverages in the olive press. If between the beverages and the olives there is enough distance for them to dry their feet on the ground, the olives are tahor. In front of the presses and the grape harvesters there was tumah. They are believed to say, we did not touch it. And similarly, the children among them may go outside the entrance of the olive press and relieve themselves behind the fence, and they are deemed to still be tahor. How far may they go and redeem tahor? Only as far as we can still see them. With regard to olive presses and grape harvesters, once he brings them into the area of the cave, it is sufficient. These are the words of Remeah. And Yoshi says he must stand over them until they immerse. Reb Shimon says if they have tahor to themselves, he must stand over them and until they immerse, and they are tamei to themselves. He does not have to stand over them until they immerse. Okay. See.
Okay, next.
All right, we're going to almost finish this tomorrow. Almost done with them. Okay. Menachos. Okay, Yud Beis Aleph. Milk offerings and libation offerings which became contaminated with tumah before they were sanctified in the vessel, they can be redeemed. Once they are sanctified in the vessel, they cannot be redeemed. Birds, wooden, frankincense, and sacred vessels cannot be redeemed, for they only says an animal. If one said, I take upon myself to bring a milk offering, if it's a machavetz, and he brought it, it's a markeshes. Or if he said it's in a markeshes, it brought machavetz. What he has brought, but what he has not fulfilled his obligation. If he said, this is to be brought on a Shabbos, and he brought it in a markeshes, and he said, this is and he said in a markeshes, and he brought it in a markeshes, it is invalid. I take upon myself to bring two esrim in one vessel, and he brought them in two vessels, or he said in two vessels, and brought them in one vessel. What he has brought, but he has not fulfilled his obligation. If he said these are to be brought in one vessel, and he brought them in two vessels, or he said in two vessels, and he brought them in one vessel, they are invalid. If I said, I take upon myself to bring two esrom in one vessel, and he brought them in two vessels, and he said to them, you vowed to bring them in one vessel, and he brought them in one, they are valid. In two vessels, they are invalid. If he said, I take upon myself to bring two esromim in two vessels, and he brought them in one vessel, and he said to them, you vowed to bring them in two vessels, and he brought them in two vessels, they are valid. If he placed them in one vessel, it is like two mikvah offerings which are mixed together. If he said, I take upon myself to bring a mikvah offering from barley, he must bring one from wheat. If he said, I coarse flour, he must bring fine flour, without oil and frankincense. He must bring it with oil and frankincense. If an isseron, he must bring an isseron, and have an isseron and a half, he must bring two. Reb Shimon exempts him because he did not donate in the manner of those who donate. A person may donate a mikvah offering of 60 isseron and bring it in one vessel. If he said, I take it upon myself to bring 61 isseron, he brings 60 in one vessel
No,
and one
no,
in
no,
another.
no, wait. We're done there.
I went too far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nazir. Okay. Gimel Aleph. If someone said, I am a Nazir, shaves his head on the 31st day, but if he shaved on the 30th day, he is discharged his obligation. If he said, I am a Nazir for 30 days and he shaved on the 30th day, he is not discharged his obligation. Someone who declared two terms in zero shaves for the first day of one on day 31, and for the second on day 61. But if he shaved for the first on day 30, he shaves for the second on 60. And if he shaved on day 61, 60 minus 1, he has discharged his obligation. This testimony was attested by Rav Pappas about someone who declared two terms in the nearest, that if he shaved for the first day on 30, he shaved for the second day on 60. If he shaved on day 60 minus 1, he has discharged his obligation, because day 30 is reckoned of him in account of the second term. Someone who said, I'm a Nazir, if he became Tamei on day 30, he forfeits all. Rav Eliezer says he forfeits only 7. And if he said, I'm a Nazir 30 days and became Tamei on day 30, he forfeits it all.
Okay.
One,
Done.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day. I'm looking forward to your
Okay.
song. Okay.
Okay.
Take care. Be well. Bye.